took a lot of time and a lot of hard work. But eventually I got there. I just wish I would have done stuff a little sooner. So I congratulate you all for getting started on this process. So for me, I started back, in my first so-called 20 years of doing my business. I was a owner and I had a partner and we both worked. And after a while, I said that this partnership's not quite working the way I like. So I ended up buying him out and went on my own. And from there, I started to do a lot of volunteer work with associations like Arrow and Cars and things like that. And I spent a lot of time and effort working on those, and I learned a lot from different people that were in those groups, not necessarily management training, whatnot, just how they run their shops, how they do things, which was great for me. And then I started taking management courses, lots of them. Anything that was available, I pretty well took it. I found that a lot of times you'd be sitting in a classroom and it would be hard to decipher what they're saying or tell you what you should be doing or things that should happen, but you'd go for that smoke break or coffee break between the sessions and a lot more discussions happened. And how do you do this? And I need a hand doing that. And I didn't really want to ask the question because I was, I felt kind of embarrassed to ask. So that's one thing that you should not be afraid to do with this group at all is if you've got questions, please ask them. There's no dumb questions. Usually most of them are pretty easy to answer. And if we don't have the answer, we'll get you the answer. So from there, I had a visit from Harry, and he introduced me to the GMS system, which is basically the garage management system that we use within the pros. And that systemized my shop a lot better, got me doing particularly my paperwork much better. I know everyone loves paperwork. If you're a tech, you don't want anything to do with it, but whatever the case may be, it needs to be done. And then I met Kelly Bennett, and you may or may not know him, but he's a great trainer, and he taught me all about tech hours. I had no idea that the labor part of my business was that important. I mean, I just figured I went to work all day, and at the end of the day, I put in my hours, and that was it. I never learned to monitor it, track it. I never worked at a dealership, so I never saw a punch clock ever. But I learned a ton from him on that, and that's probably one of the breaking points that got me to be a little more profitable in my business by tracking that. And I was in groups, Bob O'Connor group and Elite for quite a while, and then I decided to form my own group, and it was a group called G4. You'll see that verb or that statement go around a little bit. It's pretty sophisticated how we came up with that name. It was a group of 4 guys. So I don't know how much simpler you could make it.
Ontario acronyms again. That's what it is.
Here we go. G4. Well, G4 shows up a lot of places. That's how we did it. It was 4 guys. The group went to about 10. And the group was really designed to learn how to use our software because nobody had any answers like how can you fine tune this thing to make it do what you want. So we worked on that, and then we worked on training, and then we worked on marketing. So we started doing all the things that sort of like a franchise shop would do, and we shared input. And then I had some issues with how my business was running. I had managers running it, and I just couldn't get maintenance working. I couldn't get a lot of things working the way I want. So I said, well, I'm going to go on the counter, and I'm going to show everybody whether it kills me or not. And sure enough, it tried to. So I had a heart attack a few years back, maybe 7 years back, 8 years back. And my son wanted to come into the business. I was quite surprised. He told me he wanted to work for me. So I was kind of pleased because I certainly wasn't expecting my 18-year-old snotty kid to come work in my shop, but he's working out fantastic. He can run the shop better than I can run it. So after we did that, part of the group, the G4 group, we talked about a little bit of marketing and whatnot. We also brought in special trainers to do stuff because amongst ourselves, we hadn't learned enough. And then over the last 5 to 7 years, I've been working with the call center. We developed it. I'm not sure whether you talked about that a little bit, but
I didn't know.
Harry and I saw a need. One of the big things that shop owners will tell us is, or will ask the customer or our shop owner, do you follow up with your customers? Do you phone them? Do you thank them? Do you book the next appointment? All that stuff. And they say, well, yeah, I'd like to do that. I think that's really important, but I just don't have the people to do it. So Harry and I and another gentleman started the company, and we have a business development center, and that's basically what we do as well. We're providing a service that you know you need, and if we can help you, then that's what it's there for. We started doing a little bit, we started to grow through some marketing. We started looking at our results. As I became more of a manager, I could sit back and start analyzing stuff the way I wanted to analyze it. I could start figuring out what was working, what wasn't working. And then, you know, Harry came along to the picture, and Harry saw what we were doing. It was exactly what we did 20 years, 30 years prior. So we started to document it all, and we started to systematize it all, and then we decided that we would share it with everybody else. And that's where we got to today. That's how we got to where we're at. So currently my shop is running fairly smooth by itself. My son is basically running it. Myself, I do my other things I do with the company. I do payroll and some analytics, and that's probably about it. My wife comes in and spends 2-3 days a month doing all the payables. And once systems are in place, life becomes relatively easy. So I think it's a pretty well-tuned machine. So without the help of Harry doing all the documentation and lettering and litmos and presentations like what you're seeing right now, he's the guy that organizes all that and thinks of all this stuff. And I'm glad he's there helping us do it, because as a tech, I couldn't do it myself. I could tell you how to do it. I could walk you through it. I could answer any question just about. But I couldn't do what Harry does for us, or what Linda and the rest of the staff do. They do a fantastic job.